I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ha, Rekah, Kodash. Double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule Great Millstone Well, and Shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. Alright, so as you see the image, it says the end of America according to God. And the God we're speaking of is the God of the Bible, Yahweh, and this is prophesied to happen when Yahweh Shai returns, Yahweh's son. Yahweh is going to command Yahweh Shai to save the elect of Israel from the second death. The second death is the nuclear destruction of Babylon the Great, according to prophecy. Alright. The prophecy's been on the earth, alright, before this generation. Alright. As you see this image, this is the vision of Nebuchadnezzar, and it shows you the kingdoms that were going to come after Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. In Babylon, the Assyrian Babylonian kingdom is the golden head. Then you had the Medes and the Persians, which were the two arms and the chest of silver. Then you had the thighs of brass, which were, they represented the Greeks. And then the two legs, which were in the second leg of Rome, the reincarnation of Rome being America. All right. And it tells you that when these kings at the bottom, at the feet, the 10 toes, which are the 10 horns and 7 heads, this is the feet. This is the base man kingdom. The base man being Edom, the so-called white race, the wicked that rule the world today, and they use America to rule the world. This is why the prophecies of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai explain that when Yahweh sends his son Yahweh Shai back, all right, America will become a nuclear lake of fire, and it's going to be its allies and enemies. The NATO nations, the UN nations, which are the allies, and the BRIC nations, which are the enemies, all right, they're going to shoot nuclear missiles on Babylon the Great and turn it into a lake of fire, all right. Now let's go to the scripture and get this in the Holy Scriptures. It tells you in Revelation 17, I start at 1, it says, "And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." Which when you come down here to verse 15, it says in verse 15, "And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." Verse 18, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, America, also known as Babylon the Great, which reigneth over the kings of the earth," right? Which they're ruling relentlessly, just like the king of Babylon pertaining to the Assyrian kingdom did also. So let's go to this here. It says, I'll just start at 9. It says, If any man have an ear, let him hear If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So as we wait, we meditate on this truth. Revelation 14 and 12, here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments, which we meditate on these prophecies of Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, in the faith of Yahushai, which we believe Yahweh is going to send his son Yahushai back, and he's going to judge the world. Revelation 19 and 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, Yahushai's reputation. And that white horse, he comes in the glory of his Father on a so-called UFO, which is the throne fit for judgment. And in righteousness he does judge and make war, which he's going to judge them according to the law of Yahweh, and make war with the wicked and them that do wickedly. Now going back to Revelation 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, which is America, and also known as the spirit of Egypt, the spirit of Sodom. And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, which this is what they're doing right now, speaking as a dragon. The 2 horns are the Republican and the Democrat, and they're like a lamb, meaning they act like they're docile, and he spake as a dragon, but they're the devil, and their blessing is the sword. That's how they got the power over the earth, was by murder, theft, lying. All right, they stole everything and then lied about it. It says, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, which they were the pagan Romans in the past, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, which are moving in the spirit of Rome. This is why they're telling the world to get down or lay down, whose deadly wound was healed, which Rome fell, but we're in the second leg of the Roman Empire. All right, as you can see, Rome, the legs of iron, there's 2 of them. So the first Roman Empire was in the past, the pagan Roman Edomite Empire, and now we're in the second leg, the reincarnation of Rome, all right, which it's prophesied the destruction of Babylon, all right, that Esau will go into perdition. Revelation 17 and verse 8, it says, the beast that thou sawest and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, the European Union, and go into perdition, which America came out of that European Union, all right, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is, the European Union. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, which are 7 countries, on which the woman sitteth. All right. So America is the whore, the woman, and she sitteth upon these nations, controlling the world, the kings of the earth. All right, those 7 heads: Greece, Greek, Rome, Britain, France, Spain, Germana Major, Germana Minor. All right, and the horns represent the kings of those nations. And it's prophesied that they're going to hate the whore and eat her flesh with fire, nuclear missiles, which we're living in that time. You see how they're pretty much, they're not joined together. All right, they're falling apart. Germany was talking about leaving the European Union. America is talking about leaving the European Union, the NATO part of it. All right, so it says, verse 9, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are mountains on which the woman sitteth. Verse 11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Which America came out of these heads, and it replaced Rome, the head that was wounded unto death. All right, and it's going to go into perdition. So let's go back to Revelation 13 and verse, let's see. So we'll start at 12. It says, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast. So they're operating in that Roman pagan spirit before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And they even came out, right? The leadership of the whore came out and said that they go back to Rome and Athens, because the Greeks were Edomites also. It says, and he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, right? Which they just did this in Venezuela, right? They did this in Africa. They did this in the Caribbean. They did this in Syria. They dropped missiles on nations, right? From heaven. They did it to Japan, all right? It says, and deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which they have technology, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, which his military might comes with NATO, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image, a system to the beast, which is the New World Order, which he had the wound by a sword and did live, which America is the reincarnation of Rome. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, which we're seeing this system come online. And, yesterday they had a Wi-Fi blackout. And, you're hearing today that they're uploading new systems, which you have to reset the old system, right? Like a shutdown, so that it could reboot, because everything's digital now. And it's to upgrade the systems, which are a form of captivity for the Israelites. All right, so they're setting up a new system because the old system is done. All right, but they're going to fail. This new system is going to fail. All right, which they're going to make it mandatory for you to have an implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, to be part of this beast system, the image of the beast. It says that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So if you don't accept the implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, they're going to want you dead. They're going to want to put you to death. It's going to be a crime, all right, that they're going to make, which they already have on the books, laws to put you to death for going against their beast system. And you can see him already talking like a dragon, where, they don't want you in the country unless you're for the so-called white supremacy that they're ruling in, which they're not superior. All right. That's why they had to make up a thing called white supremacy. All right. Because the so-called white race is inferior to the Israelite, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian. That's why they need the gun to rule anything, because they're weak. They're base men. They're the lowest existence. They're really worth nothing. All they are weapons of mass destruction. And they were put over us because of our sin. But now that we're repenting, all right, the Lord's about to do away with them and make them extinct, all right, because this is their plot against us, the Israelites. They want to pretty much obliterate us into extinction, all right? And this is why they developed the implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, which they're going to make mandatory to mark you for that obliteration. It says in Revelation 13, verse 60, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, the implantable microchip, which they use a syringe to cut out a trench in your skin to implant an implantable microchip the size of a grain of rice in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name, which is in that chip that they scan. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, the so-called white man, Esau, Edom, the red devil the Bible speaks of. And his number is 636, Chi Xi Stigma, which goes back to the Greek alphabet. The Greeks were Edomites, and they used to brand and tattoo their slaves just like the Romans, which were Edomites. And now that system is in the technology, and they could scan a barcode. That system is set up leading to the implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, which this beast man, which he has this beast system, is going to, demand that you have the mark of the beast. All right, which is that implantable microchip. And this is why, the world's going digital, and you have America, a so-called white country that rules the world, right? It's the kingdom of Edom, and they're telling you that America's going to go digital, all right? And what's it going to lead to is their destruction. It says in Revelation 18:1, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen. And when it falls, it's going to be at that nuclear destruction, all right? It will have fallen when it's destroyed with the nuclear destruction. All right. This is when Babylon has fallen. And it's going to happen when Yahweh Shai returns and saves us from the second death. So it says in verse 2 of Revelation 18, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird, which it's going to become a desert where no man dwelleth, only desert creatures, but it's going to burn for a very long time. All right. It's going to become a lake of fire, and when it finally cools down, it's going to become a desert, a smoking desert of brimstone. It says in verse 3, Revelation 18, verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, which is idolatry. They're all agreeing to, have part in this beast system and make their citizens have to have a implantable microchip, the mark of the beast, to operate in the world. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, which you could look this up, Google who's the biggest consuming country, and it's America. America is the biggest consuming country, though it doesn't have the greatest population. All right, it consumes the most. It says in verse 4 of Revelation 18, verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, which we're going to be translated, or as you know it on earth, abducted. That's in Revelation. Let's see, Revelation 18, 6. Let's go to 6. And it's verse 9. It says here in verse 9, and when he, Revelation 6, verse 9, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, and for the testimony which they held, which we testify of our faith in Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? All right, because they're going to be persecuting us just like they done to the past. All right, they persecute us unto death even in the past. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season. And the little season is from the Renaissance till now, these last days, all right, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled, which were in this time, where they're going to persecute us unto death because of our testimony in our faith of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, which Yahushai is opening the seals, and these are like combination locks, all right? So once one thing happens, the next thing's going to unlock a new prophecy. So when they start to persecute us unto death, it's going to bring Esau's punishments, all right, where his kingdom is going to become a lake of fire. It says, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars, which are nuclear missiles, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind, that nuclear destruction. All right, it's going to become a lake of fire. All right, and that mighty wind is going to become a sweeping agent, wiping Babylon the Great off the map. All right, it's going to, pretty much nothing's going to be left. All right, everything's going to go back to the smallest element, the lowest element. All right, it's going to go back to the original state of elements after this nuclear destruction, and that's why you're going to have a desert. And it tells you in Zechariah 14 and 12, It says, and this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem, which are a people before a place. The people being the Israelites, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian that's been scattered throughout the world. All right, that believe in Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, they are considered Jerusalem. All right, and they're going to fight against us with this beast system. All right, and the main persecution is going to be in America, Babylon the Great. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongues shall consume away in their mouth, which is explaining the destruction of the power of a nuclear missile. All right? So this is the future of them that oppress us. Now going back to Revelation 6, and when they begin to touch us, this is when this is going to take place. Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua is going to avenge us. That's Revelation 18 and 20. Verse 20, rejoice over her. Her is the whore, America, Babylon the Great. Thou heaven and ye holy apostles and prophets, for Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai hath avenged you on her. And the mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, which is representing those nuclear missiles, and cast it into the sea, which the heart of the kings are in the hand of the Lord. So he's going to put it in their heart, the allies and enemies, the NATO nations, the UN nations, and the BRIC nations, to shoot nuclear missiles on Babylon the Great, the whore, the great whore. And it's all at the return of his son, Yahushai, saying, thus with violence shall that great city, Babylon, be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all, which it's going to be made extinct. All right? It's going to be wiped off the face of the earth with that sweeping agent. All right, the nuclear missile. Let's go to Isaiah 14 and 21. It says, prepare slaughter, and we're preparing you by telling you the future as prophets, starting with the head apostles that rule Great Millstone Well today. For his sons, the sons are the Edomites, the so-called white race, for the iniquity of their fathers, for what they've done against us, they're going to pay for it. And that's why it says, when Yahweh's son returns, he's going to avenge us. America's going to become a lake of fire, and they can't stop it. That they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities, so that they don't multiply and take over the earth and become what they have become. Which they've done this twice. This is why there was a flood, and this is why there's nuclear destruction. It's because the so-called white race, the Edomites, all right, they're the devil that deceives the world and accuses the Israelites when they're the wicked. All right. It says, for I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant, and son and nephew, saith Yahweh. They're going to go into extinction. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, which is going to be a desert with pools of water, and the land will be covered in brimstone, which it's going to burn for a very long time, and then smoke for a very long time, and then eventually desert creatures will dwell here. And I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, which he's sending his angels with his son Yahushai when this happens, to save the elect from the second death. So this is Isaiah 13, verse 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes. The Russians are in the place of the Medes today. Against them, so the Russians are being stirred up in war against the Edomite Americans, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it, which makes sense today because everything's going digital. Their bows, which is pertaining to the nuclear missile, also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, which everyone wanted to come to America, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency made in the witchcraft, shall be as when Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, which Sodom and Gomorrah was an example of what was going to happen to America. All right, it says, yep, verse 7. Jude, verse 7, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, which they were committing sodomy and idol worship, and going after strange flesh, are set up for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. So I pulled up example in the dictionary. It says a thing characteristic, and it says a thing characteristic of its kind or illustrating a general rule. All right. It says a person or thing regarded in terms of their fitness to be imitated, take or follow as a model, to be imitated, or the likelihood of their being imitated. All right, so if you put Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction and go to images, it will show you what the Bible says happened to Sodom and Gomorrah, which fire fell down from heaven. These same elements still exist, but they're in nuclear form. All right, and this is what's going to happen to Babylon the Great, aka America, via nuclear missile being shot off by its allies, the NATO nations, the UN nations, and the BRIC nations, the enemies of this whore. All right, this is what's going to happen in the future according to biblical prophecy. And this is why they're going to persecute us, because we're telling them what's going to happen when Yahweh Shai returns. And they're trying to stop it. All right? So this Sodom and Gomorrah was an example of what was going to take place in the future. And you've always had prophets even back before the flood. It says in Jude, verse 14, and Enoch also the seventh from Adam prophesied of these, saying, behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners has spoken against him, which they're going to be in the lake of fire with the Edomite, the unbelieving, the unfaithful Israelite. They're going to be in that lake of fire with the heathen. This punishment was created for the heathen starting with Edom, but the 2/3 of Israel that are in America are unfaithful, being deceived by Edom, and so they're going to be destroyed with Edom. It says in Matthew 25, verse 41, it says, "Then shall he say," and this is red letters, so this is the Messiah speaking, "Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels." The devil is the so-called white race, and his angels is his military. But you have Israel joining their military for a paycheck, so they're going to die, all right, because it says that they have to have an implantable microchip to be part of this beast system, all right? And so they're going to be in that lake of fire with Edom. The judgment of Edom is going to be nuclear destruction, all right? And any Israelite that accepts that implantable microchip, you will be in that lake of fire with Edom, all right? Which there will be a remnant of these heathen preserved in the bunkers for slavery outside of Babylon the Great, and that's in Revelation 6. All right. So when they start to touch the anointed, that's when the plagues are really going to be kicked up. All right. So verse 14, Revelation 6, verse 14, "And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, on the chariot, on the so-called UFO, so you can understand. And from the wrath of the Lamb, which Yahushua is going to pay them back for even the crucifixion of himself. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Because the earth is going to shake from this nuclear destruction. It's going to be a great earthquake. All right. Going back to Revelation 18. It says in verse 3, For all nations have drunk of the wine of her wrath, of the wrath of her fornication. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. This is why she's called a whore. America is known as the great whore. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, which America is the #1 consuming country, even though the population is not the greatest. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, which this is going to be a Hebrew, a voice that speaks Hebrew from heaven out of the chariots. My people, come out of her, my people, and we're going to be translated up into the heavens, given new bodies, and chambered into the chariot for protection from the second death, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, which the final plague is the second death, the nuclear destruction. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and our power, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai, hath remembered her iniquities, because he's remembering us. And so he sees these heathen rising against us, his people, the apple of his eye, And he's going to war against them because they're making war with us. Really, they should just face down, lay down, and surrender to the Israelites. But instead, they want to murder us. Instead of wanting to let us go, they want to murder us, right? And lie about it. So this is the same spirit as Pharaoh in Egypt that is on the Edomite nation in Babylon the Great. This is why it's also known as the spirit of Egypt. All right. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she had filled to her double. How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, which they lived deliciously off the blood, sweat, and tears of the Israelite, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, were the slaves here, were the poor, and were persecuted for being righteous. So much torment and sorrow give the Edomite race, the so-called white men, all right, pertaining to their kingdom, the whore, the great whore. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Who shall bring me down to the ground? That's the pride of this whore. Therefore, I shared the video clip of it, but Kim Iverson, I was watching a video where she's talking to the Beijing professor about civil war in the streets of America, fulfilling the prophecies. They have a cruel Lord, right, set over them, the reincarnation of Nero, and that woman, Kim Iverson, all right, she couldn't believe it. She said, she pretty much openly said she couldn't believe it. And the dude, the Moabite, was laying it out for her, step by step, how these things are going to play out according to history. Because if you know the history, you know the mystery. All right? Just like Rome fell, America is going to fall also, for it is the reincarnation of Rome. All right? But you have these Edomites and these other people that believe in the pride of this place, which deceives them, and they're going to go into destruction, and they can't believe it. Because that pride, who shall bring me down to the ground? The Lord's going to bring you down. And he's been bringing you down because you're corrupted. All right? And so your integrity is in question, and you're not righteous. You're wicked. See? So you flee when no man pursueth, and you're being revealed as the devil, and pretty much everyone wants to, pay you back for what you've done to them and to their countries and to their people. You have reigned in a reign of terror. All right, you threaten these other nations with terror, but now they have your sword, which you sold to them, that nuclear missile, and they're not afraid of you no more. He says, therefore, shall her plagues come in one day, and really 1 hour, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, nuclear missiles. It says, for strong is the Lord. All right, let me start up a little bit. And she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord Yahweh, sending his son Yahushua, who judgeth her. All right, so it tells you that in 1 day, in 1 hour, this whore is going to be destroyed. It says in Revelation 17, and no, it was 18 actually. It's just down a little bit. Revelation 18, excuse me. Yep, right here is 17. For in 1 hour, so great riches, which America was a great rich country, is come to nothing. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors And as many as trade by sea stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? Which is talking about America. America is a great city that rules the world. And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein we were made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. See, so America, its destruction will only take 1 hour, which it's going to be destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah. These elements are in nuclear missiles, and those missiles are in the hand of its allies and enemies, which they sold to them, right? Because this technology was first in America with Oppenheimer and Einstein, right? But what did they do? They sold it. They sold it to these other nations, all right? And these other nations are going to use it on America, all right? Their own sword shall fall upon their own head. It says in verse 21, And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon, aka America, be thrown down and shall be found no more at all, which it's going to become a desert, eventually a smoking desert. It says in Joel 2, it says in verse 1, Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, which we're telling our people of the future, we're warning them and telling our people to repent. Repentance and salvation is only for the Israelite. And sound an alarm in my holy mountain. The holy mountain is pertaining to the Israelites. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh cometh, when he sends Yahushua back. For it is nigh at hand. And we know because the prophecies that are happening, all right, we know it's near. They're about to make an implantable microchip mandatory for buying and selling worldwide. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there had not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Talking about the nuclear missile. All right. It says, A fire devoureth before them, which they have nuclear warheads, and behind them a flame burneth, and the burning is the propelling it. Right? It has nuclear power to launch it, ICBMs. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, which there's animals, there's trees, there's rivers, there's grass, there's people, and behind them a desolate wilderness, which is going to become a desert when it cools down from burning for a very long time. And then it's going to smoke for a very long time, and it's going to be a smoking desert of brimstone. It's going to smell like rotten eggs, and nothing shall escape them. Which these nuclear missiles are going to cover the entire United States of America, and this is why it's going to become a lake of fire. And once again, according to biblical prophecy, it's going to be shot off by your allies and your enemies, the NATO nations, UN nations, and BRIC nations. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. So they run in a configuration like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains, shall they leap, which they go ICBM from continental to continent, right, from continent to continent, ICBM, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array, which the outer part of the missile is armor, and on the inside you have the nuclear fire in the tip, and you got the nuclear fire in the tail to project it from one continent to another. Before their face the people shall be much pained, which just recently we had the anniversary of they having the false alarm in Hawaii, and there was people that actually had heart attacks from hearing the false alarm of a missile strike gonna hit Hawaii. All right, so that was an example of what's gonna happen to these people when these nuclear missiles are fully shut off. All right, they're gonna hear about it, and they're literally gonna have heart attacks just from the fear. It says all faces shall gather blackness, and that's why I gave you the example of Kim Iverson. Right, they can't even believe civil war is about to happen, or really in effect. Right, you got war in the streets of America, where the European Union is telling their people, do not travel to the United States, whether it's you're going to be harassed by their immigration, or you could literally die here in the midst of some violent act, whether it's a T attack or you being shackled and thrown in a torture chamber, and you end up dead. So this is the last days, all right, of the Edom's kingdom, and this is why they're coming down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. It says in Joel 2 verse 7, they shall run like mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, which they're ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they shall march every one on his ways. They're configured, all right, and they're literally going to be guided to their location, and they shall not break their ranks, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, the Edomites' kingdom, they shall not be wounded. Nothing could stop them. All right. This is why you had Nero, the reincarnated Nero, come out with a golden dome theory, which it's going to fail. It won't stop these hypersonic ballistic missiles. They shall run to and fro in the city, and they open up, right? The mouth of the missile opens up, and you have all these warheads. China said they got 61, which is 61 warheads. All right, it says, they shall run upon the wall, they shall climb up upon the houses, they shall enter in at the windows like a thief, which they're going to come unexpected, all right, because everyone don't believe it could happen, but they're going to fall from heaven and rain on the earth, all right? It says, the earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining because of the mushroom clouds, and Yahweh shall utter his voice before his army, which I just read. Come up hither, so that you are not partakers of her plagues. For his camp is very great, which you can't even number all the Israelites that believe in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. For he is strong that executeth his word, which he sent the prophets, and he's going to fulfill the prophecies, including saving us from the second death. For the day of Yahweh is great and very and very terrible, and who can abide it? And this is why he's going to send his son back to save us. Matthew 24 and 30, what's that at 30? 29, it says, immediately, which it's red letters, so it's Yahushua prophesying, immediately after the tribulation of those days, which is going to be caused by the implantable microchip being made mandatory for buying and selling, they're going to stop the food, they're going to stop all of the resources, and pretty much siege the city, this great city, and cause the people to be chipped. All right, but the elect are going to refuse, even if it means our death. It says, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. The nuclear destruction, because they persecute us for remaining faithful to Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahushai, even unto death. And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. This is why they're going to be in the bunkers outside of America, in the caves and all that. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man, Yahushai, which is a man, right? He's coming as a god, but he looks like a man, a so-called black man. And all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man. Let me get you his image so you could understand. All right, because they lied to you about that. The Lord is a so-called black man. All right, he was of the tribe of Judah when he was on earth. And when he comes back, he's not coming back as a man, but as a God. Because the Israelites are really gods, but we're in mortal bodies, so we die like men. And that's why Yahushua was able to be crucified like a man, because he had mortal flesh. But he's been resurrected and sits at the right hand of the Father. And when he comes back, he's not coming back as a man, though he'll look like a man. All right, he's going to come back as a God. All right, with glory, the glory of his Father. And he's going to judge the world, all right, with his angels. And he's going to save his anointed from the second death. It says, verse 30 of Matthew 24, Yahushua is prophesying, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man, Yahushua, the Son of Yahweh, in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, which there's only 18 nations on the earth, all right? And he only loves one nation, the Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians of North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, which we've been scattered throughout the world for many generations. And he's only going to save a remnant, but this remnant is such a great number that you still can't number it. But it starts with the 144,000 elect men, 12,000 out of each of these 12 tribes, whether they are dead or alive. All right, the ones that are dead, they shall rise first, and they shall be with the Lord when he returns, and then he will call us, the ones that are alive, to be up with him into the chariots and be changed in the twinkling of an eye. It says in Matthew 24, verse 31, red letter, Yahushua is prophesying, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Go to Revelation 7 and 4. It says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 men, Israelite men, of all the tribes of the sons of Israel. Verse 9, and after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, which these are Israelites that are listening to the prophets through the internet, of all the nations and kindreds which they've been scattered, all the 12 tribes been scattered throughout the world amongst the heathen, and people and tongues which they speak different languages, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, which we're going to receive salvation. Revelation 19:7, let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife had made herself ready, which the Israelites are going to be joined to Yahweh through Yahweh Shai, his son. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. See, so we're going to be delivered in the righteousness of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, because our righteousness is not of ourselves. Isaiah 58 verse 14, then shalt thou delight Isaiah 54 17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, meaning overcome us. And every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh, which we're going to do this before we go back to the land. And their righteousness is of me, saith Yahweh. So we were raised to prophesy. And we're prophesying that we're going to go back into that land. Isaiah 14:1, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers, which are the Israelites scattered throughout the world, shall be joined with them, which they're being joined through the internet by these videos, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. They're going to believe in the holy scriptures, which speak of Yahweh's son, Yahweh Shai. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, the heathen nations, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors, which we're going to pay them back. All right? When we have them in slavery, all these heathen, we're going to pay them back for what they've done unto us. Obadiah. And this is why they're going to fight like hell, because they don't want to go into slavery. And they shouldn't. But it doesn't change shit. They're going to go into slavery. For the day of Yahweh, Obadiah verse 15, for the day of Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. This is why he's sending his son back, to save the Israelites from the heathen, and then to enslave the heathen, the ones that remain. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee, because Yahweh is just, and his son is righteous. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head, for as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually, which they're going to go into slavery. And they're going to be enslaved under us, which we're going to rule with an iron fist for 1,000 years. Then the Edomites will be made extinct, and the other nations will continue in tributary to the Israelites. Yea, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. All right, extinction. All right. Now us, we're going to be captured and taken up into a chariot for protection, and we're going to look down on this judgment. It says in Revelation 15:1, and I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image. The beast man is Edom, the so-called white race. Esau, Edom is their biblical name. And over his image, his system that's on the earth, And over his mark, the mark of the beast is the implantable microchip, and over the number of his name, which is in that chip, that them being able to scan it like a barcode, and in that barcode is that number 666, standing on the sea of glass, having the harps of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai. So we're going to be up in a chariot looking down, watching the destruction. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of Yahweh, because of Yahushai, and the song of the Lamb, Yahushai, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Yahweh, Almighty, just and true, which Yahushai is the just and true, are thy ways, thou King of saints. So we're going to be praising Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name, for thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest, which we're seeing the judgments play out right now. It's the end of the so-called white man reign of terror. 2 Ezra 9, verse 2, it says, Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. Wa Abba Babal.